Hello everyone, welcome to TalentEgg Talks with Export Development Canada, otherwise known as EDC. Today we'll be discussing what a successful career at EDC can look like for you. From co-op placements to entry level and beyond, EDC is here to help you on your career path every step of the way. My name is Mary Barroll and I'm president of TalentEgg. Joining me from EDC are Isaac, Tristan, and Emily. Isaac Sider-Echenberg works with EDC to connect Canadian exporters in the advanced technology sector to a targeted portfolio of international companies. Isaac completed his bachelor's in international business at Carleton University in 2018. Also joining us is Tristan Nguyen, who's responsible for the portfolio management and governance of EDC's private equity portfolio at the corporate reporting level. Tristan graduated from the University of Ottawa with a Bachelor in Finance in 2018. We're also joined by Emily Lupiano. Emily is an HR professional who's passionate about supporting EDC's employees. She completed her bachelor's in criminology and psychology, as well as her HR management certificate from Carleton University. Emily is the campus recruitment program lead supporting EDC's business through early career recruitment and development. It's wonderful to have you all here today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
We asked our community of students and grads to submit questions for our guests, and thanks to all of you who submitted your questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can today. But before we start, I understand that Isaac and Tristan have very inspirational stories about their growth at EDC. Can you open up our chat by telling us your stories? Let's start with you, Isaac.
Thank you so much, Mary. So I started at EDC about 2.5 years ago as a student right out of graduation. I was put on a very, very interesting team at EDC, which is called Global Trade, which essentially works to connect Canadian exporters to very interesting opportunities in a number of different sectors. In the last 2.5 years, I've been very fortunate to stay on that team and move from a contract student position into a full-time permanent role as a senior associate. I've been able to learn a lot about different sectors, different business development strategies, and I've been able to connect with a lot of very, very innovative and exciting Canadian exporters.
That's fantastic. And Tristan, tell us your story.
Likewise, I finished school about 2 years ago, and like many others who were around this time, they were looking for full-time positions. Ironically, I applied to join the current team I'm on as an analyst right out of university, not knowing that it was, super competitive. And when I did apply, I actually didn't make it to the first interview, but I knew for sure that I wanted to work at EDC because I've heard through word of mouth that, it's a place to grow and develop your career. So, I joined EDC as a student on another team. And then, through my journey, I've become full-time on the international side, working for the global business development. And then, most recently, within the last month, I've actually moved to the investments team. So it kind of takes a long journey, but I'm happy to be where I am now.
Wow, well, in 2 years since your graduation, both of you have gone a long way, and it sounds very exciting in terms of your career paths. I wanted to actually turn now to some of our student questions. And the first question comes to us from Haley. Haley asks, what type of skills should students who are applying to EDC's positions be competent in? I think, Emily, this is a good question for you.
Absolutely, thanks, Mary. So in terms of the specific skills, they can differ pretty drastically because we do recruit student opportunities across all lines of business. So they can be specific to the team and the type of work that the student would be doing. That said, I think there are some universal skills and competencies that do make students successful at EDC. I would identify those as being open-minded, being engaged, so showing us how you're involved and what kind of impact you're making, being professional. So show us that you care, show us that you're ready to get down to business, ready to get to work, and ultimately taking initiative and being resourceful, I think are some really key indicators that have made students in the past very successful at EDC.
So it sounds like it's a combination of both, of course, the technical skills, but also this combination of real personality traits that you find valuable. and you've outlined them extremely well. Tristan and Isaac, did you find there were certain aspects that you were able to bring to the table in terms of your role within EDC? Tristan, maybe I could start with you on this.
Of course. Thank you, Mary. A skill set that I've worked on, and especially that I've been, taught through my leaders, is, being very proficient in communication. And what I mean by that is EDC, the work environment is very collaborative. You get to have the luxury of meeting and working with many people across the organization. Everyone has a different way of communicating. So having that ability to know your audience and understanding how to speak to others is a very key skill set that I'm obviously still learning to this day, but it has definitely helped push my career so far at EDC.
Definitely. I think Emily kind of hit the nail right on the head when she said there's a lot of different skills that people can bring to the table at EDC. There's a lot of different work EDC does. I think something that I was really happy to bring to my interview was the fact that I had had a lot of experience working in fairly fast-moving environments. Prior to EDC, I ran a club for a few years at Carleton. I did a lot of case competition work, and I think that the work I do at EDC is very business development oriented.
Fantastic. So I understand that there's many summer job opportunities to be had for students. Can you tell us more about what those jobs are and what those jobs are like, Emily? Maybe you could give us a clearer idea of what somebody could potentially have an opportunity to experience at EDC for a summer job.
Absolutely. So we are lucky in our student and new grad program at EDC in that virtually every line of business has students. So there are a wide variety of opportunities and skill sets that we do look for in our students and our new grads. To name a few are, we have our finance, technology, analytics, legal, HR, audit, some really interesting fields in sustainable business, so environmental and social risk, clean technology, business development. So the possibilities are really quite vast. But maybe Tristan and Isaac can speak to the work that they did as new grads in two different business groups.
Absolutely. So maybe Tristan, we could start with you this time. What was your experience?
Yeah, so when I joined EDC, I joined with what used to be called the Revenue Value Stream Center of Excellence. And, it's a mouthful. So to make it simple, it's basically a consulting group, which basically supported lines of business throughout EDC with implementing, any performance changes, processes, and ensuring that we are always implementing the correct and the most efficient processes to do business. And that was the value add we provided so that they can provide value adds to the customers of EDC. So during that time, I had the opportunity to work with many teams across the organizations, whether it would be in finance, technology, with clean tech or sustainable business. It was such an opportunity for me to really learn all the areas of EDC and how it all works together, which has been very helpful when trying to continue my career at EDC.
And Isaac, maybe you could give us a peek at what your experience is like?
Definitely. So, coming out of an international business undergraduate here in Ottawa, EDC was definitely a top of mind organization given its mandate and kind of its reputation as a good employer. When I applied to the student posting coming out of graduation, they essentially matched with a couple different teams at EDC they thought would fit the background I had and what I was bringing to the table. So I ended up ultimately landing with my current job on global trade. But I do remember at first being a little bit nervous because even though I did an international business undergrad, it wasn't as focused on finance. And I think a lot of people think of EDC as primarily a financial organization, as kind of a bank for exporters. But like Emily mentioned, there's a lot of different functional areas and a lot of different focuses within EDC. Maybe as a compliment to Tristan, who's gotten a chance to work with a lot of different teams, I've actually worked primarily with the same team for the last 2.5 years. But within that team, there's been a lot of collaboration with different groups at EDC. So I think that one of the benefits of working at EDC is you're not really siloed into one group. There's a lot of opportunities for collaborating and learning as a young professional with people from all sorts of areas of the business.
So really getting your feet wet and being able to meet other professionals from a wide variety of different parts of the business.
Absolutely.
Emily, I know that EDC wants young professionals to understand that it's an employer that offers long-term career path within the organization. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what EDC offers in terms of professional development that supports this kind of career path.
Absolutely. And the support that we offer, we offer a number of resources, and it can vary at different stages of our employees' careers, depending on what they need at the time. But to name a few, mentorship is something that is a real priority at EDC, whether it's, more formal through your direct leader or by establishing a mentor in another area of the business to get that kind of professional guidance. Career chats are a really big part of my role as well. As our students come into the organization, I like to get to know them and help them ultimately identify a potential career trajectory and support their networking within EDC however I can so that they can ultimately get on that path. In addition to that, through training, whether it's onboarding and job-specific training, we really focus on continuing to develop our employees. Through our benefits, career coaching is something that's also available so that employees can continue, on that career journey, kind of at their own pace. And ultimately, the flexibility and, in some cases, support for education, but if anything, the flexibility to make your kind of career goals align with your work.
So we have another question that comes from Kate, who asks, how often does a person get a full-time job at EDC once they're done with the summer job program? So that's a pretty direct question, Emily. Maybe you could tackle that one.
Absolutely, and I'm so sorry I don't have the particular stat kind of off the top of my head, but I would say it is probably the norm rather than the exception that our students and new grads would roll into professional roles, whether they be contract or permanent.
So Kate also asks, how much room is there to grow at EDC? Do entry-level jobs usually amount to promotions within the company? Well, tell us your experience, Isaac. Is that sort of an evolution of your career as you experienced it at EDC?
Yeah, so I guess I can kind of tackle this question two ways, which would be personally for myself and also for a lot of students that I've worked with at EDC to help kind of in similar positions. So from my own personal side, I was very lucky in that I had a team that had a lot of opportunities available that I started with as a student. And you still have to do some work. You can't, I think, like any job, you can't just sit around and hope someone will pick you up and promote you. But I think that as long as you are willing to put the work in, have the right kind of talk with your immediate supervisors, and be very open with your own career goals, there is a lot that could be done to help kind of position yourself and position myself to move into a permanent role on my team.
Well, thanks. That was a great answer. Gave us great insight. Tristan, maybe you could talk about what your experience was.
Yes, thank you, Mary. And just to comment on Isaac, I actually fit on the second part of his point of view. I started out in strategy, as a finance graduate, so not necessarily in my field of work, but that didn't discourage me, and I took the opportunity that I was given to really learn about the facets of EDC, whether it's the teams, whether it's the work, and I actually pivoted to international business right after that. So I became more curious the longer I was at EDC. I wanted to know how exactly EDC supports Canadian businesses, not just domestically, but as well as internationally. And that's what appealed to me. So after working for strategy, I moved to international business. And then from there, I moved back into finance. So I've become very appreciative of EDC, who are willing to, provide that opportunity to learn about all areas of EDC, because they want to grow you, they want to make sure to even maintain an open mindset and make sure that, you are, as long as you're willing to learn, they're willing to provide that opportunity.
Well, we're moving on to a different area to touch more generally on company culture. Ahmed wants to know what it's like working at EDC as a student or grad. So I'm going to go back to you guys, starting with Isaac. What was it like joining this group? What was your personal experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it definitely is worth saying that when I joined in 2018, the world was very different than it is now. So I'm sure there are different experiences people have when they start as students. I've personally found the EDC has a very open culture, which I really, really appreciate. I like the fact that you're encouraged to, that saying they sometimes use strong opinions held loosely. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a high-level employee, it doesn't matter if you're just starting at the organization. there's a great culture that encourages people to speak up if they have good ideas, to share them, to own them. And that's something that I really, really appreciated myself, is that idea that you're not just there to do a job and kind of silo yourself into a work you're doing and then go home. There's a lot of opportunities to collaborate and have your ideas seen and heard.
And Tristan, your observations?
For my observations, something that stuck home with me was that you bring a fresh perspective, especially if you're someone that's recently graduated. Processes aren't linear. Processes aren't there to be there forever. So when I first joined EDC, my boss straight up told me, listen, you bring a fresh perspective and I brought you in for your ideas. So please feel free to speak up. And, if you see something that's not right or you see something that could be better, I won't be offended if you told me otherwise, because I want you to be comfortable voicing that opinion, and that when you voice that opinion, you are committed to that notion that you bring something to the table for the team.
That sounds wonderful. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Emily, about the culture at EDC?
Sure. So I think you, Tristan and Isaac, you really nailed it there. The only thing I would add is just to say and kind of reinforce that we really are not functioning in that kind of siloed environment. Our student and new grads do not function kind of as, their own entities. They're very much integrated into our business. And the emphasis that EDC puts on its student and new grad program, and the value that we recognize that it brings, I think speaks to a lot to our culture and wanting to bring on new perspectives, and very open in terms of collaboration and, expanding and continuing to develop.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And I'd like to now sort of move to some aspects that I think that EDC provides great opportunities about. And that's about events that may be coming up where students can chat with EDC recruiters and other industry professionals at EDC to get a better insight directly from you. Could you talk a little bit about that, Emily?
Absolutely. So the timing is quite fortuitous. So we actually have an open house. Normally it would be in office. Obviously this year it's virtual. Before our posting is going to close for our summer 2021 opportunities. And that's a great opportunity to hear about different lines of business. We're going to open it up to Q&A and get a better understanding of what kind of opportunities are available at EDC. Myself and, members of the talent team will also be attending to speak to, some of the more logistics of how to apply and, how to get noticed. But that opportunity is going to come up on January 28th, so keep an eye out. But we do events throughout the year, and we post them on LinkedIn and we advertise them through TalentEgg. So keep an eye out for upcoming things in 2021.
Fantastic. So maybe you could describe just for our audience about some of the events that you have all year round, where you invite students and grads to learn more about EDC.
Absolutely. So I'll maybe focus on two areas. We have an external focus and an internal focus. So our external focus usually is a bit more targeted towards, similar to an open house or virtual career fairs, short networking events. So networking 101, quick interviews with different recruiters to get an understanding of, how to apply, how to get prepared, what's available at EDC, and advertise those opportunities to different universities and different business schools across Canada. Internally, we also offer resources for our existing students and new grads so that they can continue their development.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, thank you to our students and new grads for submitting some wonderful questions for our guests. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Isaac, Tristan, and Emily, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with our audience of students and new grads? Maybe I'll start with you, Isaac.
For sure. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that I think myself and Tristan were in the shoes that a lot of new grads are in now. And I think maybe we even had a bit of an easier time of it. It's a new world in terms of landing jobs post-university. I think the one thing I wish that someone had told me when I was graduating from university and going into the job hunting world is never undervalue kind of the experiences you have. Not everyone graduates university with 3 co-ops under their belt or a bunch of internships. Sometimes what you have is some extracurriculars at school, and maybe some jobs you held down to work part-time during university, you can learn and grow from almost anything you're doing. And I think when you go into these types of interviews, it's always really important to see the value in what you did. And it's more about what you took out of it than what the title of it is on your resume. And
Tristan, any final words?
For me, what I've really taken home during my job search, a couple of years back was, take the feedback that you get from the interviews that you get, whether it's what you would do differently, how would you better present yourself. The interviewers are willing to provide you some feedback and how you best promote yourself in a different way, or maybe they in a more specific way that more tailored to the job that you might be posting for. For example, I may have not gotten that analyst position that I wanted to right out of the bat, but they did tell me that, I did bring a lot of key skill sets and that I should probably be highlighting them more if I were to look for other positions. So, take it for what it is, understand the criticisms that you will get, and don't be afraid to ask for them because they're very invaluable.
Fantastic. And Emily?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to say thank you so much, Mary. I'm really excited for heading into 2021. I think EDC has some great opportunities to offer students and new grads. And if I offered a couple pieces of wisdom for those who will be applying for roles in the new year, I would just make sure to highlight, like Isaac said, highlight the skills you have, don't undervalue them, but also make sure that we can get to know you and your personality from your resume. We don't just want to hear about the qualifications, we want to hear about you.
Well, thank you, Emily, and thank you, Isaac and Tristan, for your inspiring stories and great insights and advice. Visit our website, talentegg.ca, to find out more information about EDC. This video will be available on TalentEgg's YouTube channel and on our social media, so don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more TalentEgg Talks. Thank you for joining us and have an excellent day. See you next time.